Welcome to We Still Ain't Got Our Shit Together podcast.
You know the Man Cave Mindset.
I am your host, John Wayne Willis Jr.
And I'm your host, Corey, but you can always call me KJ.
Corey, go ahead and tell them what we got on this.
First things first, this is a boundary-free zone. We're going to talk about a plethora of topics.
Shit. The only thing that really grinds my gears is that people really believe that life has a time frame.
Man, that shit crazy because we all still ain't got our shit together.
So stay tuned and have fun.
We out.
Point me to that check. Next move, chest. Ain't we next?
I want to welcome everyone back to another episode of We Ain't Got Our Shit Together podcast.
You know the Man Cave Mindset.
And today's episode is going to be great. We have a special guest, but before we get to the special guest, we're going to go ahead and tell you what today's episode is, and that is going to be the culture of consent.
Yeah,
and for
no
that,
don't mean yes.
You say no don't mean what?
No does not mean yes.
Okay, fair enough. Unless it's a no yes, right? But with that being said, with no further ado, let's go ahead and introduce Dr. G to the podcast.
Hi, friends. Oh, I'm so excited to be here. My little J Willie.
Okay. Introduce yourself regularly to the people, please.
Okay, I'm Dr. G. I'm a psychologist, and I'm very excited to be here to talk with my boys about the culture of consent. I think it's a very important topic that we should talk more about.
Absolutely. And we do appreciate you coming and just giving us your time.
I know, especially like I know it's still sunny out there right now and wonderful places that she lives in that are far, far away, and that people just want to live. Yeah, the birthplace of The Rock.
Yes. It's a wonderful place to be. One day you're gonna stop playing.
I can't afford Hawaii.
I gotta go out there anyway. My brother, he just moved out there.
See, your brother sounds like a smart man.
I hear it's beautiful. But before we turn this into a travel podcast, aka wink wink, let's go ahead and have you do us a favor real quick, Angie.
Yes.
Can you give us the clinical definition of sexual consent?
Okay, so there is a difference between a clinical definition of informed consent, which is making sure that whatever party you're engaging with knows exactly what it is that you desire to do and agrees to every single step. The definition of a more legal definition of consent is one party and like agreeing voluntarily, so under no duress, under no coercion, to engage in another person's proposal. So whatever that proposal is. So it implies both an agreement as well as a request, just to be clear on that.
Okay. Agreement and a request, to be clear. Mm-hmm. So that is the definition to the T of what we should be looking at when it comes down to people having the conversation of consent. Now,
absolutely.
Corey, tell me what you learned of consent growing up.
So there's multiple ways you can find the consent. Is just how you play it, for one. Two, with my experience, I learned to let the female make their first move, and then I give that. So once she touched me at a certain place, I know, okay, this is time for whatever's about to happen, whatever sexual encounters that she wants to, get into. So it's more of a people, when people say fill it out, it was more of that type of situation, what they used to say back then.
Okay. I think for me, how I look at it was the conversation of consent wasn't necessarily brought up when we talked about sexual action. I think the consequence of sexual actions was brought up before the question of consent for me came about. Right now,
what do you mean consequences?
Okay, so what I mean by when growing up, when somebody gives you the talk, supposedly, the talk is like, consequence, you can have a baby. Consequently, you can catch a STD. Consequently, you know, you got a crazy woman on your ass. I mean, it's just one of those things that was taught to me coming up, that you have to be, you know, mindful of that versus mindful of how you're going about receiving and engaging, which is really, really important as a topic content. I mean, for this content that we're doing today, it's been on my heart heavy for a few years now, especially, you know, just having a daughter. And it's not saying that men don't need or don't deserve this, because this is for men just as well as it's for women, and vice versa. It's for people. But
absolutely.
But, you know, I used to always hear rape culture, used to hear the culture of consent. Like, what did that mean in general, right? And so, you know, I just thought that this topic would be really interesting to bring up. And it's interesting to hear. So for you, Angie, when was your first introduction to what consent is, or sexual consent?
You know what? Sadly enough, probably when I was in grad school. Like, did I really start? Did I really start thinking about what does consent look like, and what is it supposed to look like for somebody to ask for my consent? Like, really, you know, in every stage of any kind of physical encounter. Which, yeah, it's really sad, but I never really got like the talk. I got much of what you were saying, the consequences, you know, like if you have sex before you're married, it'll like make Jesus sad, or, you know, you can get pregnant. Like, yo, that stuck with me.
Sorry, bro.
That was the talk that I got. Like, you know, crucify Christ, and it was like, oh my God. So I had a lot of religious, a lot
Christians
of
is wild, bro. Christians is wild, bro. Keep going.
But yeah, just a lot of lenses, and also a lot of lenses as a female, being expected to be a certain kind of way, and then growing up, you know, and getting a little hip, getting a little cake, getting a little cute, being expected to, you know, bypass, having consent bypassed for me, pretty much. And so really not until grad school did I have individuals that were really adamant about making sure that they were seeking my consent for everything, which was an eye-opening experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's eye-opening. I think off air, we talked a little bit about, okay, before I say what we talked about, I'm asking you, have you heard this term before we had prep, Corey? Enthusiastic consent. Had you heard that before prep?
I ain't gonna hold you. Nah, I ain't never heard that before.
Never heard shit like that, right?
Point blank period. Nah.
Like, so during prep, I mean, she is a doctor. I mean, okay, what is the full degree scope of what your doctor
in psychology.
So a PhD in psychology. Is there any focus on sexual or health education like that?
Yeah, my particular focus is, and I'd like to get certified as a sex therapist as well. And so my research for my dissertation was mostly on sexual behaviors and consumption of sexual material.
Okay.
So yeah, I have an interest in it.
Yeah, so she got an interest in it. Not only does she has an interest in it, she kind of has a bit of a stake in it now. You know, I don't know. I ain't never wrote no dissertation a day in my life, right? So, you know, I'm pretty sure she wrote like 25, 30 pages of half a book on
259 pages, my G.
So she wrote an entire book. She wrote an entire book on sexual behavior and information, people. So when I say it's cool to actually bring her into the podcast for this, we're going to get a lot of great information. But, you know, and that's eye-opening for me to hear, you know, for you talking about grad school was that concept of being introduced to it. That, you know, sparked this to move forward to where you are right now. Moving a little forward, speaking about all of this, when okay, I'm trying to see how do I word this. When do we, as a culture and as parents, begin to break down, and how do we begin to break down to teach that ability to expect to receive consent, and and expect to give or to ask for consent, basically?
Honestly, and I know a lot of people don't typically like hearing this, especially depending on what culture you come from, especially for Black and Hispanic culture, you're kind of just expected to like kiss aunties and uncles and hug them and all of these things. But truly, like, really the talk about consent comes from body awareness. Like when you're teaching your child the appropriate names for their genitals, when you're bathing them, or having conversations about nobody is allowed to touch you here, or you need to ask this, or you need to ask that. Like it really does come down to having those conversations as early as possible and allowing them to mature in content as your child matures, but also availing yourself to what are the stats out there, what it does look like, and how consent and lack of consent incorporate and contribute to rape culture, right? Because that's never something that we want our kids to experience. But I think it's a really uncomfortable topic for a lot of parents to dive into. And so I think just making sure to have those conversations as soon as possible and as comfortable as possible so that it just becomes normal.
Yeah, that's dope. That's dope. So Corey, as a parent, as a parent, have you and your wife started the concept or the conversation of consent yet? And if so, how did you guys go about doing it?
Absolutely. For one, as growing up, she's absolutely right with that. We have instilled, hey, nobody does this, nobody does that. But me personally, when it comes to my daughter, I'm not hands-on when it comes to, let's say, her taking baths at a young age. Me personally, I don't believe that the father should be the one helping to make her take a bath. That's what the mother's for. She's able to teach her certain things to clean that I don't know. She's able to teach her and have these certain type of conversations that it will be more uncomfortable for me as a man to have with the little girl. So I kind of put certain things in her hands when it comes to that aspect.
Okay. I am going to go in on what Corey said. I mean, I also am a parent and have a daughter. But I'm a little different. I believe I should be hands-on, not necessarily in the concept of bathing, but in the concept of having the conversation that even as a man, as your father, I still need your permission to
of course,
or something like that. And if it's a conversation about, making sure your vulva stays clean, right? As she learned how to wipe.
Terminology.
Come on now, man. I'm a smart brother. You feel me? I smart, right?
I feel you.
And
love it.
And so the conversation goes for me, because I think Angie kind of tapped a little bit on it, and I think that we're all kind of leading to that conversation of how the beginning stages helps to protect the stage that every kid eventually gets to once puberty hits, and that's the rape stage, right? And so having that thing where Angie said earlier, even if it's auntie and uncle or grandma or grandpa or mom or dad,
talk about it,
right? And that's the conversation. Children have their own minds, right? And as parents, we can sometimes teach children to disassociate yet again, that there's a difference from them having the ability to either say yes or no, right? And so that's a whole nother ball game, setting them up for failure a bit in the future, because we got to think what's being moved and what's being changed throughout the process. So let's kind of go ahead and dive in the deep end about this rape culture thing, right?
Hey man, she told me that I've been raped while I was at work, basically.
You were sexually assaulted at work.
Basically,
I know the whole situation. You were sexually assaulted.
Oh my gosh! I mean, it is, like I said, it's so much more common than people think for men and women. It just is, as rape as well as assault.
But honestly, the most fucked up part about it is the fact that I had a woman look at me like, "Wow, you've been sexually assaulted. Like, look how big you are. Like, what? Like, for real, bro." And I was like, "Yo, like, so you don't believe a woman can actually do something to a man, like same way a man can do something to a woman?"
I think the
What if he
process.
was?
No, she just
Go
looked
ahead.
at me crazy and funny and walked off. And like, I'm in front of all my other peers, and I'm literally asking, like, so you truly think that me, just because of my size, I can't be groped, I can't be
Oh
sexually
wow.
assaulted? And she just looked at me crazy. I'm like, yo, that's
Yeah,
I mean,
crazy.
listen, dumb you can educate. You can't fix stupid. And so,
okay, now
I
hold
mean, if
on.
somebody
I'm about to time out right here. I'm about to time out right here. I'm about to time out right here. All right.
woo,
So
because you know
so
I'll go.
this honestly goes back into society norms, right?
Mhm.
When it
Yeah.
comes to rape culture, for how many years has rape culture been focused on a victim being a woman and a
Mhm.
man being an assaulter or an aggressor, right? And
Mhm.
so when you look at a guy like Corey, who happens to be 6'4", broad shoulders, looks like he can knock your head off. Is he
Mhm.
supposed to knock this woman's head off that touches his genital region, even though it was unannounced and unwanted, right? And so when you
Mhm.
look at that conversation, it's going to move from, oh my God, this 6'4" black man just hit me, to
Mhm.
it had nothing to do with me groping his penis, right? And that's a
Mhm.
different type of conversation that people don't have, because in society, we're allowed to continue to view rape culture as a singularity event.
I
And
got
I
a
think
question
that
for you,
that's
real
a
quick.
concept that has to change.
Have both of
Mhm.
y'all seen the movie Antoine Fisher
Of
Yeah,
course.
that shit crazy.
with Denzel Washington and the dude or whatever? And what
Of
happened with
course.
him? I think it was his
Yeah.
older sister or whatever who raped him.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm okay. I know I'm not the doctor. Sorry, Dr. G, but tell me if I'm wrong. This is one thing I'm very abreast on, in the sense of understanding the numbers.
Mhm.
I think it's like somewhere between 65 and 75% of all children at some point in their life are either molested or sexually
Mm.
assaulted by somebody close to the family or a family member, right or wrong.
Now, I don't want to misspeak, and so I can't give stats overall on
Okay, so don't
that.
give us that.
But what
Just
I
tell me
can
if
say
does it
is
happen more often than
it's
not?
very common. No, I mean,
Okay,
to be honest with you, sexual
yeah,
assault within the family dynamic is exceptionally common. I mean, and it
yeah,
crosses across cultures, across religions. It is exceptionally common. And it goes back to what we talked about before, excuse me, about allowing your child to know what is a boundary, allowing your child to say no, all of these things, allowing them to feel uncomfortable and taking account when your child feels uncomfortable
yeah,
around somebody. But it also even goes back to the fact that you guys touched on it. We have certain stigmas and we have certain paradigms within religious sex, within cultural and racial sex, that certain things you just don't talk about, certain things you just kind of sweep under the rug, or certain things you just ignore. Like when Corey was having the conversation with the young lady about him being able to be assaulted and his options of, if I do strike this woman, right? If I choose to defend myself against an assault as a big black man, I now face other things that
yeah,
somebody else in my position may not. And
yeah,
so, just like women who are assaulted, if I say something about this, I may receive reprisals because of my position that I may not want to encounter or incur. Or if I do take my auntie or my dad to the police for touching my child, what will happen within my family dynamic? And so we do
yeah,
face a lot of these, I'm just going to outright say it, idiocies that we
yeah,
really have to dismantle and decompose so that we can grow healthy sexualities and that our children can have a chance to form healthy identities and sexualities.
yeah.
100%.
So I think for me, where we are right now at this moment is that I don't know if anybody else has coined this statement, right? But I've coined it to myself, meaning sexual situational awareness, right? And
Okay.
so I think what we're standing on, and I think Angie even spoke to that process. I have only ever talked about it beyond the puberty scope, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that you just kind of brought it into play for me when you talked about having the conversations move as maturity level moves. And
Mm-hmm.
so, right now my daughter's 4. So the
Mm-hmm.
conversation is, hey, baby, if you're uncomfortable around somebody, I just want to know, right?
Mhm.
And then let's try to have a conversation so that you can best articulate why you're uncomfortable. Is it because they don't give you what you want? Like, oh, they don't let me watch TV, so I don't want to go over there. Or they won't give me no ice cream, so I don't want to go over there. Or, Daddy, sometimes they really make me feel uncomfortable. Then that's when I want to question, right? Okay, what you mean they make you feel uncomfortable? Because now I'm about to go over there and be like, what you mean? They want to feel uncomfortable, right?
So that's one thing I fear because my response is
yeah. I don't think I would have
a
very good response to it. But I mean, I also think that the process.
And I mean, that's the thing you got to try, because that conversation, especially for a child, needs to be as calm and as palatable as possible. Because kids also think, if I tell Daddy will get in trouble. Kids have that like awareness of what will happen if I do this, or what will happen if I say this, right? And so making sure that kid feels like, no, I may kill them, but I'm not going to say that in this conversation. Just tell Daddy or Mommy what happened, and we'll talk about it. But even like you guys, I mean, you guys have different paradigms possibly on this, if I understood it correctly. But I also think normalizing having sexual awareness conversations with both parents, like with your dad, because as young girls, how many young women are taught to be able to hold their own or have a conversation with another man about sex until it's a man asking them for sex?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's real.
Or even young men.
Real.
And we don't teach young men the same thing that we teach young ladies, that your sexuality is a gift and it's a choice for you to give. It's never an obligation, and nobody owns it but you, and you don't owe it to anybody for anything. We don't teach young men that. We really don't. And I think that has to start becoming more of a norm, as we talked in post about even the rates of sexual assault and the expectation of men and women of consent, because women aren't often expected to provide consent or request consent of men, in my experience. And it's not it's not acceptable on either side of the coin, and I think it comes back down to what are we teaching and how are we training.
I mean personally, I feel like you hit a strong point, because what we do teach young ladies, we do not teach men.
Right.
Personally, like
it's oranges and apples, bro.
Absolutely,
it's oranges and apples. You telling
awesome.
the young lady that she's this beloved princess and nobody will ever hurt you, or Daddy will always be there to protect you regardless of whatever. It's just not true. Like, it sounds great right now, but it's not true. I mean, eventually at some point you're going to be away from my protection, off God knows where, if it's college or if you're moving for a job or whatever, right? Even if it's in high school and you're going on a field trip or whatever, and you look at guys and it's like, yeah, son, put them down, bro. Put them down. Like, do what you gotta do to get them. Like,
and then we have those
they
two
say no, try
again. Trying to come together and have the same sex. Like, it doesn't happen. You feel me? It just doesn't happen. Your son is like, yeah, I'm gonna lay it down, and then your daughter's over here like, I'm a whore if I do this. Like, oh my God, you just create so chaos that makes no sense. Like, we gotta start.
I mean, I definitely agree with the chaos part.
It's wild.
And now, I say for me, and I come from being a man, and when I say that, when I looked at sexual situational positionings that I have been in my life, not everybody is going to feel and operate the same way I did. Right. The first time I was faced outside of the house with a situation that was uncomfortable for me, I created a set of rules, like a full set of rules. Like, dude, this situation right here, like, I'm supposed to get some, and Shorty is like, right? So I felt off, right? Okay, something about this feels wrong. It wasn't that I had the sexual situational awareness board, but as Corey talks before, it's a feel that you get. Like, if she does this first or she does that first, the move is supposed to, keep going. But for me, like, I felt like a whole X in the vibe and in the body. And after that, I was like, look, I need to know why you coming here, what you expect from me. This is what I expect from you. But it was never a thought of realizing that what I was doing was for consent. I was doing it to not be disappointed again. So I think that was like a thing for me. It became a protection, right? But it wasn't a protection of sexuality. It was a protection of my ego. It was the protection of me releasing dopamines with the expectation of having this wondrous, blissful end. And it did not come to fruition.
I can stand you at all.
I can understand.
Well, I'm sure you can't stand me. I sound like the doctor today.
Oh my goodness.
But
I'm very aware of John's rules. And I think that on one hand, I will say, I think your rules are utterly ridiculous. And on the other hand, I will say that I think your rules, the fact that you created rules, like you examined the situation, created rules to keep you safe in whatever way you needed to remain safe, right?
Yeah.
The rules that you designed were about making sure that clarity was given on both ends. And so to that effect, I'm like, you know what? Those rules are what you needed to keep you safe and what another person needed to feel aware of what was going to occur. And on the other hand, I was like, this is rubbish. But, we all have... It
can't be rubbish, bro. It can't be rubbish. You can't like and hate something at the same time, right? It can't be rubbish.
Yeah, I can. Duality is the spice of life. I love it.
What? That's called being a woman. Keep going.
Look, I do understand that. Like, perfect example. I used to have a rule: you can't come over my house after 10 o'clock at night. Like, not going for it.
What
are these rules?
These are sex hours.
Yes, these are rules.
You're not coming to my house after 10 o'clock and we're not having sex. Like, you wasted my time. Like, let's be clear. Like, either I could have been here by myself, not bothered, just been chilling,
playing some 2K, doing whatever you had to do
in hopes of something else.
I love you guys said play 2K. That was sweet. That was special.
I mean, look. Okay, so I think what the conversation is on this, because we're talking from the layman sense, like being two males and having the one female perspective. I've heard different perspectives. Like, somebody would be like, oh, so no woman is allowed to come to your house and kick it? I said, no, that's not the case. It wasn't that any woman wasn't allowed at my house.
Absolutely.
But if I had a thing for you not allowed at my house after this point.
Absolutely, because somebody else.
That's the conversation, right? That's the conversation. People are like, oh, you can't just tell no girl she can't come over. Like, it's unfair for you to say that y'all can't come over after this time, or she can't spend the night, or she can't do this. I said it's 100% fair for me to say this because I know what my sexual mind is like and how it kind of rules a body. And we're both large men. And being large men, that is not a great place to be.
Absolutely not. It's
not at all.
Why? I need you to clarify why, because that came off sounding a little like, oh, so clarify why it's not a good place to be. Yeah, let me.
Okay.
Okay,
so what I mean by this, right, is I think that two people should be on a wavelength, right? If I know that I'm pursuing you because I want more than a sexual relationship with you, if we're kicking it, I'm cool with that, right? Let's be honest. I'm not that type of dick. Now, if I know that all you are to me at that time is sexual pleasure, and that's not what I'm going to receive, there is no reason for you to kick it with me.
There you go.
At my place at this time.
At 10 o'clock at night.
Because I am not going to have blood here, but there. And there's no reason for me to have blood there if it ain't going down.
And another way I can explain it is you might have two ladies. One of them you established a friendship.
The friend come over.
Come at 10 o'clock at night or 12 o'clock at night, and you won't expect anything. Then another woman, you're like, okay, we haven't established a friendship. We just have sexual interest in each other. You come in here at 10 o'clock. You laying in my bed. We laughing, talking. What else am I to expect?
And,
nothing. I think that's
okay. Tom, I was going to go there.
Remember when I told you, if you're teaching your child your sexuality is yours and yours alone, and
Absolutely.
nobody is owed it, and nobody can expect anything of it. If that's the programming that we're given, right, or that we're desiring to give, that expectation of, and I mean, same thing here. John knows, because I was the friend that was allowed to come over, and it got me so much hate in college. Like, oh my God, like, why are you allowed to go to our house at 10 o'clock at night? Because John and I are not smashing, okay? That's my BS.
like,
you feel me? But John also
it.
knows the rules that I had.
Yeah.
If I am going to engage you in a certain type of way, I am explicit. Like, one of the things I say is I speak in neon. There is no ambiguity in what I desire from you and what you might desire from me, or me requesting to know what it is that you desire from me, and we'll move accordingly. Like, that's just what it is. And if you ever step outside of that boundary, depending on where I was in my development or where I was at in my life, I'm either going to get uncomfortable and have another friend come over. I'm going to call John. I'm going to call somebody else, because I no longer feel certainly safe that you're going to maintain our agreement, or you're going to be asked to leave. Like, that's just what it is. But I have no expectation of what will occur, even if that's what we agreed to, because you can change your mind at any time. That's the beauty of consent. We could have agreed,
Absolutely.
like, hey, you about to roll up here at 12?
Right?
All right, cool.
I do agree with you.
100%.
Only thing I'm saying
at
is
any
to
time you can change your mind.
these situations, to prevent them, there need to be rules and understandings. Like, if you know, hey, this is not what you're into, then hey, we need to kick it anywhere before 10 at night. Let's actually get to know each other.
You better come meet me at JR Crickets for some wings and some drinks. And then you driving your car and I'm driving my car. So that way we can pot.
Because
if I pick you up,
the boundaries are solid, and the boundaries are important. What I'm speaking to is the change of mindset as well. Like, and I don't think that it's anything wrong with that, because again, we're coming into a new time. We're coming into a new age where we're really taking ownership of what we want our mental, sexual, and emotional health to look like as young adults, and what we want that to look like for our kids, because we didn't really get it. And so y'all being disappointed, there's nothing wrong with that. That was the training you received. But I know for me, if I'll be 100, when I'm disappointed, I behave in a way that may be coercive, or I behave in a way that may make you want to take care of me in a way that you didn't intend to. And so when I say change the mindset of disappointment, is more to calibrate consent. Like, in my mind, it's consent can be given and taken at any time, and no matter what this individual has agreed to. So say, like I said, say our agreement was you go come over here and we are going to engage in X, Y, and Z. And that was our agreement. So when you get here, I'm ready for X, Y, and Z. I'm totally ready.
Don't try to be Q and E up in here.
Hey, if you came up in here and you're like,
he's like, he came down. Hey, I'm just trying to hit the G and the P if you let me.
Listen, I'm saying, if we start doing X and then you're like, you know what? I'm good here. I don't want to do Y and Z.
Yeah.
I have to maintain a state that is not disappointed, simply because I know for a fact, if I do, you're going to do something that I wanted you to do that you no longer wanted to do. And that's coercion. You feel me? And so that mindset changing, your behavior has to be what we grow into, and has to be what we feed into our kids. It just has to be.
I'm a segue. It's not off of this particular brand of topic.
Hold on one second, John. Hold on one second.
I'm not taking us off this part of the topic, but I had something I wanted to add in. But go ahead, you can go first.
No, I was saying that. Remember earlier you were saying that you have to know the state that you're in, the place that you're staying, because perfect example, North Carolina.
Whoa. Don't want to move to Carolina, baby.
You get started
because that shit don't even matter. I get in, I get to stay in. You feel me?
Yeah.
So
you don't care what you say.
Your state, and you do have to know everything to go on. I'm just piggybacking off you said, because a person might change their mind in the middle of it, and by law they don't have to stop. So you have to know where you stay at and what's going on.
Okay.
Yeah, knowing the
law.
I'm
not disagreeing
with before Angie answers that, I think that this is a good position for Angie to now explain, because we've heard you say earlier in the podcast, but it wasn't really explained what enthusiastic consent is and then you have certain states, and I'm not, I don't know all the states, but you have certain states that require enthusiastic consent, and then you have states like North Carolina that is just doesn't require shit. I mean, North Carolina is rape culture personified.
Woo! It makes my brain explode.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy out there. It's kind of crazy out there. And let me say this right. If anybody that listens to this podcast lives in North Carolina, we are not saying that you. No, we're not saying that you're being raped left and right. What we are saying is that there is a chance that if something happens that you did not consent to, okay, I got to rephrase, something that you consented to originally but changed your mind, you will no longer be able to consider that rape within the confines of the state of North Carolina.
So to be clear, consent does not exist sexually in North Carolina because the whole entire point of consent is the ability to revoke it. And if you can't revoke your consent, it doesn't exist. So move. I'm saying it. Yep, I said it.
But the housing prices are amazing.
So to get explicit, if he puts it in,
you're gonna let your daughter live there.
Nah. I'm saying so. Okay, so time out. So time out. If you if Morgan gets a ride to go to like North Carolina, right? Am I supposed to be like, nah, you can't go?
Hell yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Maybe you got 12 other schools that have actual consent laws. Let's try those.
Because you got to think about this. In college, people have a problem with date raping. They have
first of all, college is a cesspool.
Well, college is college. You have a lot of sexual things in college, and since you have a lot of sexual things, the last thing you want to be is in a sexual place. Yeah, and you can't say no.
Yeah.
That's the last thing.
Right. Hey, hold on. Hey, you got. Hey, we gotta coin that, dog.
Yeah, say it one more time for people in the back. Go ahead.
You do not want to be in a high sexual place, and you cannot say no. That will ruin you for the rest of your life.
I mean, mentally. I mean, you think about it. It is mentally draining.
In North Carolina, just fuck the laws.
Yeah, so it is very mentally draining for any person, male or female, to be in a situation and feel like there's nothing that you can do. And that's kind of what Carolina provides for you. I mean, regardless if you're on campus or not. I mean, and now we're talking about criminally. Most schools will either expel or handle the person that is a part of the sexual interaction, as long as it's not somebody that makes them millions of dollars per year. So
the damage is done already, though.
Yeah, damage is done.
So they expel the person. Yeah. The damage is done.
And most schools don't pursue criminal charges. That's not the narrative. And in fact, a lot of schools, like if you look into the stats, there was a wonderful documentary done a while ago, and I can't recall the name, but it was looking into the stats of actual reports of sexual assault, both male and female, on college campuses, and actual disciplinary action in congruence with them. And it was like 1 in 15 that they actually pursued disciplinary action.
The concept of that is, regardless of what school you go to, schools never want bad press, right?
Exactly.
And sexual assault is one of the worst press that you can get. And we're talking about small private colleges to large state schools. You know, it's really wild. Let's kind of jump into a little bit before I got lost. Corey jumped into the state thing. So we've kind of already at this point covered how we should look at dealing with our children going forward, right?
Absolutely.
Now, as we spoke earlier, I wanted to talk a little bit more about sexual situational awareness for both parties. Like, you have sons, right? And daughters, Corey. You have a son and a daughter. There's sons and a daughter. So meaning he has both of the conversation to be had, right? Now, this is not meant to do anything, but for me, I feel like I would have thought the same way. And I thought it was interesting as a male because how we are socialized. When it came down to the conversation of consent, you automatically went to talking to you about your daughter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, as men, when it comes down to consent and it comes down to thinking about sexual situational awareness, how, as men, Corey, do you think that we can deal with our sons and young men that are in our lives to have them have a bit more information when it comes to sexual situational awareness based on how they're being socialized? I mean, when you think about locker room talk, when you think about uh, uh, um, boys must become men type of talk that we have with our sons, and it's a little bit rougher. It's taught them to be a little bit more aggressive, especially going after what we want, right? And so, how do we think that we kind of deal with that going forward, especially because you have sons right now that will eventually get there? And after this, I'm going to segue into something else that I like about this era that me and you talked about before, Angie. But go ahead with that, Corey.
So let's be clear. One, for a man, it will be easier to talk to a boy.
Mhm.
Reason why is because everything you'd have been through, or he'd have been through, or is about to go through, you'd have been through it, for one.
Yeah.
Two, when you're dealing with girls, they're a little more delicate. So you have to be more, you have to use your vocabulary a little bit more because you don't want to scare them into, you don't want to damage them too much to where you scare them too bad. Now, when it comes to boys, you can simply just have an actual conversation. You can simply explain to them, hey, this is what you don't do. As a young man, this is what you're supposed to grow up to. This is what you're supposed to look out for. This is how you're supposed to react to things. And if you're uncomfortable, you can always, I'm not an advocate for the cops, but you can always call the police. You can always do
I
certain
feel you on
things.
that. I feel you on that.
Yeah, so
That got to be the last resort, bro.
yeah. I'm not an advocate, especially as a young black male. It never, even when you're the victim, it always turns out to you
At
being
that point, even if
person.
you're the victim of the male's calling, they are automatically coming at you first. I mean, that's just that's police tactics 101.
But see,
But
we
I
got
think
sidetracked. But
yeah,
to be honest, with males, it's just easier to have a conversation with, especially when you done been through everything that they'd have been through. So boys, it's 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 a smoother process than it is dealing with a young lady as a man,
yeah.
personally.
I think that I agree and disagree with you.
Okay,
You know what I'm
elaborate for
saying?
me.
I think where it comes to being a man, we are still dealing with our socializations with our boys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus, you know, let's have the conversation like, I understand that you want sex, but it's okay to wait for your time, right? I
Absolutely.
understand that this point is important because you hear your boys, yeah, man, I got such and such, man, I got it in, da 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 da, and then not to feel pressure to be in that way. Because I think I'm talking from my experience and as for a male, from your experience, I mean, I'm pretty sure it was the same. When when I started having sex, it wasn't necessarily that I thought I was truly ready. It was necessarily to the fact that it was the conversation of the time. And it's about being first for men, right? I was like, yo, it's a competition. Like, this is my boy. Like, yo, I'm gonna get it before you. You ain't gonna get it. Da, da, da. And that drove me in a sexual sense, versus saying, am I comfortable at this moment? Is this really the conversation I want to have? Because I mean, you know, I think about for myself that I've already done wrong in that sense. Like, as a young man with another young man who's very close to me, I mean, he's as close as family as you can get, right?
Mm-hmm.
Spent his time with me as I was a young adult. Now, I do think I taught him ways to protect himself, as we talked before. Like, yo, you're not gonna put yourself in a situation with Shorty, but what you gonna do to get Shorty is this, right? And it was still the different mindset of the conversation was more so geared towards him reaching all of his end goals versus, yo, are you even like, is this even what you want right now? And if it isn't, it's cool, right? It's okay to wait. It's okay to understand that the situation can take time, right? And so I think for me, and it's really hard to remove myself, and I'm talking right now because I don't have a son, right? I don't have that where you get that male to male personality. I have 2 women in my household. So, I mean, I'm looking at, I got to make sure I talk to my daughter so she don't get messed up by some asshole, right?
But think about this, though. You talk to your daughter a little more delicate than you did. And the reason why you might think you don't, but when you have a son, you will notice the difference. Like with your daughter,
that might be true. That might be true. Yeah.
You're more, what's the right word? You're just more patient and understanding, and you try to coach her through it just a little bit better. Then with the boy, you're like, all right, I told you this. Now, come on, we got to actually execute this. It's a little different.
So my question is, do you think that that's part of your socialization as a man, though, right? When you're dealing with your sons?
Honestly, no. I think that it's a part of testosterone.
Sir.
Reason why I said it like that. Reason why I said it like that is because when you're dealing with your boys, it's more of I'm raising you to be a strong man, a strong, respectable man. And
socialization.
So you would call that socialization?
I mean, it is. I mean, so 100%. Like the concept of gender roles for men, that ain't changed, right?
Yeah, I know I have it.
So if my dad was like, "Oh, you're not doing what it takes to take care of your family," I'm done with you, bro.
Dr. G, facial expression. I need to know.
Go ahead. We don't almost cut her out the combo. Come on.
It's the faces for me.
Come on. We almost cut you out the combo.
My face. So I apologize, but I would say this: gender roles are definitely changing, whether we like it or not. Like there has just been a shift, especially within the last 20 years with technology, with education, with women taking different roles and positions in life, with people deciding to abate marriage and relationships, people foregoing sex. All of these things are changing the zeitgeist of what gender roles look like. And they're going to continue to change. What I would also say, though, I mean, no matter how we feel about it, what I would also say is that I think people have this misconception that women don't also have testosterone, just like men don't also have estrogen, right? You can have, you got
feminine men, right? Just like you got masculine women.
Men that aren't, homosexual. You have very masculine women, or all of these things. And so, as just as men have different degrees of sex drive, women have different degrees of sex drive, and those show up, fairly early on. And so I would say you never really know what your child is going to be on and what they're going to be like, even if it's predicated on what you've been through. Having that same conversation that you have with your daughters, have it with your sons generally in the same ways. Like, I'm not an advocate necessarily for treating boys and girls exactly the same, because we're not the same, and we're not going to all go through the same things, right? But it is so incredibly, incredibly important for men to talk to women about sex straight, and for men to talk to women about their desire to have sex. And, it's okay to wait, but it's whatever your paradigm is. If it's okay for your child to engage in sex, telling them that, you know what I mean? Whatever you are implanting in your sons, implanting in your daughters, so that that conversation becomes normal. And making sure, if you do have a 2-parent household, making sure that your wife is there to have those conversations with your sons as well, with your daughters as well. Because again, we are having completely different conversations about the same thing that we're trying to come together and do. And that's why it gets there's many reasons why it gets effed up. But I think truly that is one of the reasons, is because our programming is so different, because we're trained and talked to differently. Not to say it's wrong, but I think it would be helpful. If you are patient and kind with your daughter, be patient and kind with your son. If you real with your son, and be real with your daughter, be both. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think it helps a lot.
So much easier said than done, though.
Of course,
right?
Yeah,
I think it's so much easier said than done.
It's very different. I don't have a stake in these children like you guys do. You know what I mean?
Good question. Like, are you close with your father?
I don't have a dad, so.
My bad.
We not ready to go there yet.
The answer is no. It's fine.
Okay, I look at it this way. Right? I think that it's interesting, and I know for people like me and Corey, one of the things is that having a friendship the way that we do, we definitely have conversations that deal with real life applications that are uncomfortable to have for most people, but it makes people better for it. Now, by any means, I want to say this out loud. I am not a doctor. There is no DR behind my name. I'm not anything. I just think that the way that I view the world for me and mine, right, is that I hope that I'm doing the right thing. But at the same time, how I view for me and mine, if I'm gonna talk to my homie, like he's gonna be like, look, this is what I'm thinking. Yo, what are you thinking? You actually have sons. Like I have a daughter. Like I remember early on, like my wife was like, oh my God, like you're so rough with her. And I was like, dude, what you mean? Like at the end of the day, my entire goal, because I have seen, and you know, we all react to situations that we've seen and what we know, right? And I have seen situations where I truly felt, in my opinion, and you know, to me, it's a little asinine as I get older and mature throughout the years, that women had issues with not understanding sexual situational awareness when it came to males, because fathers do not have the talk dealing with sexual encounters with their daughters. So so to me, it's not even the fact to say that, you know, guys and girls want something different. I really think that men and women are very more in line than we are apart when it comes to that sexual gravitational pull. I'm just saying, this is my opinion, bro. It's my opinion, bro. It's my opinion, bro. It's my opinion. I don't have.
I love Corey's face.
Okay, so talk about what Angie said. The world is changing, like it's shifting. Now, I do not believe that gender roles have shifted. What I believe is that gathering has become closer to one another, which sometimes makes the water murky. So I just had a conversation earlier today when we were at a family event where even if you look through nature, right, men have always been a protector. We're talking about other species now. When you look at the gorilla, we are considered a species, right? We just have a higher cognitive ability. Now, if you look at the animal, right? If you look at Animal Kingdom, you talk about lions. Women do all the gathering. Women make all the money. Let's put that 100%. But guess who's the one that gets up if somebody breaks in your house?
Yeah.
Big dog.
But that's the concept. When you look at nature, right? And you look at nature and you seeing it. The lion is the one that protects the pride when somebody comes up. The male. If you got a pack of hyenas, it's not the women going after the hyenas. It's the male going after hyenas. When another male comes in and approaches women, it's the male beating his ass, getting them off the women. But it's the same concept when you take a look at the elephants, right? The women are usually considered the leader of the herd. But when it comes time, a man steps into his role, right? That's him. And so the conversation never to me is that we have changed into roles, but we have gotten to the point where now that we understand anybody can be gatherers, right? Anybody can bring in that process of income. But not only that, we as a culture and as a species have put dominance on gathering versus what we bring together to the table. And I think that that's huge, right? And so it doesn't mean because a woman lion knows how to fight and bring home a gazelle that she won't F her dude up, right? You see what I'm saying? But in the middle of the day, if another person's approaching, it's tap, tap, tap. I know you sleep, but you better go deal with that person trying to get in the house.
Absolutely.
Because she know at that point, she's never going to be the person that does it, right? And so what that's bringing up is that everybody is moving closer to this paradigm, as you said before. But I don't think the gender roles have changed. So, I mean, when you speak to your daughter and you speak to your son, there are parts of the innate things due to our sex nature that are just in us. Now, if you live on your own, I understand. You don't think that?
That's not the science. Like, I'm just going to tell you that.
I just said I'm not a doctor. I just said I'm not a doctor.
I agree with you on most of what you were saying. I do. And you said something that was actually pretty profound, that we're moving closer to everybody, like moving closer to this kind of like line, right? But we put so much emphasis on the gathering. And so I think that is a huge part of why, especially now, women's sex drives have never really changed, but we've been socialized to be so demure and to be so an acted upon party rather than the actor when it came to sex, that it just was something you were supposed to repress. And you guys touched on this in the podcast that you guys did about women being the one that you really need to watch out for, because their film game is on a whole nother level. That's simply because
these
you
women
cannot
wild out here.
repress
2021
nature.
different.
You feel
2021
me?
different.
You cannot repress nature. And so even if you're telling a woman, oh, you should be quiet, you should be this, you should be that, we're not going to do it. It's going to come out in some other form. But now, as we move closer and closer to these lines, women are allowed to do what it is the heck that they want to do. And you're starting to see that sex drive that we have, that desire that we have for sex, whether it be platonic, whether it be casual, whether it be coupled, whatever it is no different. And again, it has never been any different. The expectation for us to pretend as though it was different is. And so now that you're seeing that we are becoming just as dominant in our sexual desires, in our sexual knowledge, in our sexual exploration, men find themselves being acted on just as much as women oftentimes. And so that does change the conversation about what sex looks like. It does change the conversation about desire and what's okay and what's not okay, with that in mind, for men and women. It's far more similar.
It's almost like
one thing I can say too, though. I feel like when it comes to men trying to speak with their daughters or other women, I feel like women made it a little more difficult because we have to be choosy on our words. We have to be the best way that I can say it. We have to,
You can. Exactly. Listen, when my cousins talk to me about sex, I never got the sex talk from my mom. I got the sex talk from my hood AF cousins, who were all men out here in the street, like looking at me like, hey, when I do to this girl, when I take you on this date, don't ever let a man do to you, or make sure a man does this for you. But also having that sex talk, they didn't mince their words. They talked to me just like they were talking to my other.
But see, what I was trying to say is that like I, as a man, when I do approach a woman, I talk to her a certain way. I don't talk to her as aggressive. I don't talk to her like as one of the homies, like, hey bro, bring your ass over here, or something like that. I don't talk to her that way, so I'm trained to approach a woman a certain way. So when you try to talk to your daughter, you're like, all right, I still have to approach her a certain way. I still have to approach her the same way I do another woman on the street. I have to approach her with a little more delicacy. Like I have to be.
I agree with you to an extent. Like with my wife, my daughter, my mother, I feel that way, right? But if you're not one of those to me, I don't care what I say to you.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Hold on.
I don't care what I say to you. You know what it is? If you ain't what it is.
Don treats his friends of all genders equally the same.
But see, that's the difference. It's a difference when you have the homies and your homies be a male or a female.
Yeah.
And when you have your woman and your daughter. You know you got to talk to your woman a certain way, and you know you have to talk to your daughter.
I agree with that.
But a regular person on the street, you gonna have all the.
But I think the conversation comes in is that even though we know that that's in our mind, a conversation that we have. Oh, when it comes to baby girl, you know, I gotta be gentle. But I think a lot of that still comes back to the conversation of socialization versus. The conversation of her man ain't going to necessarily always talk to her that way. You see what I'm saying? It ain't going to always. Okay, time out.
Me and bro gonna really.
I am going to put this into
I'm gonna be at your neck.
True terms. I'm gonna put this into true terms. Have you ever gotten frustrated with your wife, Corey?
Absolutely, I got frustrated, but I never disrespected her.
No, hold on. I didn't say that you had to call out her name to disrespect her. Mm-hmm. Have you ever put bass in your voice when you were frustrated with her?
Oh no, I just get quiet. And
you never use bass on her.
That's smart.
No, and the reason why I know I'm gonna get angry, and since I know I'm gonna get angry, I shut up, and that's what pisses her off the most. I shut right there.
That's fair. So
I was
you're
like, you
playing a
know what?
different
All
game.
right, bro, you
You're
got
playing
it.
a different game. See,
And you got
for
Absolutely.
me,
you also got to know your woman, because like,
yeah.
hey, for some of us, you put some bass in your voice, and we go from ready to have this conversation to ready to cut you. I mean, it just depends on the
See,
person.
I feel like you're just a little cuckoo. That's all.
It just depends on the person. I will tell you, I think all people are crazy. I think men are crazy. I think women are crazy. And I think it just depends on the degree. And if you got a crazy chick who it lives deep down, like deep down on the inside, and nobody really thinks she's crazy, she will end you. She'll end you. So don't do it.
The quiet people are the ones that end you. Corey's the one that's going to put rat poison in her Starbucks coffee.
Okay. Well,
I know she
off of
loves
the topic of
Starbucks.
rat poison,
But
I agree with what you're saying about treating and speaking to your children, your wife, your sons, your daughters with degrees of respect that are necessary. I agree. I agree.
But
So
see, one more thing, John. One more thing. And Just Hilarious just posted this the other day. She was like, when a woman says, "Oh, don't do this," do the opposite. So whatever she say, do the opposite, because she really wants you to do that. When she said and what Dr. G said does not match. Like those are two different.
Yo, but time out. Okay. I thought I wasn't going to bring this up because Angie always says that this is constantly rapey, right? And I don't think that this word is. Hold on. Okay, no, because what Corey said makes sense, right? Hold on.
Don't do it.
Hold on. Stop. Hold on. What if you were in a situation, and I'm pretty sure that many people have been in a situation where there's two different no's? Do you believe in that, Corey?
This is on air. Like,
I'm just okay.
Look, right,
I'm not saying that you have to go through with it, but do you believe that certain people have two different no's?
And so look, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I done been through two situations. I had a chick say, "Nah, I ain't going for it." And I had a chick say no, but then turn around and put her ass on my dick. That doesn't like what the hell do you do with that? Like, what do you do? Like, what do you do at that moment? Like, what should be your response? Women make it hard for us.
You, Angie, you run from this so much, but this is actually what happens in the real world.
It happens sometimes. I understand.
It happens more than not. I don't do this.
So here's the thing.
I don't do this.
Back to what you were saying the whole time, John. Socialization. Here's the thing. Different cultures will allow you to engage in sex in different ways, right? Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is some cultures, you are allowed to be very like, yeah, I know X, Y, and Z, here for it. And the dude is like, great, let's do it. And other cultures, when you're like that, they're like, yo, like, why are you so aggressive or this or that? So I will say, in having experiences with different cultures, you can have an allowance to never be seen as a whore for what you desire or a hoe for what you desire. And some cultures, almost no matter what you desire, you may be seen that way. So there is this paradigm, like you were saying, that, you know, if I have to say no in order to receive his respect, I will say, sweetheart, if you're worried about his respect, he's not somebody you should be sleeping with. However, I should look this way so that he respects me, and I should say no when I really want yes, but it really does mess it up, because when you actually mean no, how is one supposed to know the difference, right?
Oh my God.
It's not a good look. It's not a good look. And so when I say there are not two types of no's, I mean that. No just means no, right? It just means no. Like if I've been in situations where a guy has been like, oh yeah, I want to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, all right, bet. And then they're like, oh, you know, I'm not sure. I'm not having another conversation with you about it. We're not going to talk about it again, because for one, I don't want you to ever be in a situation ever, right? Having been in situations myself like this, I don't ever want you to be in a situation where you don't feel like you're being heard, and whatever you are okay with is going to be respected. That's just me. But I'm not going to talk to you again about it. If you say no, or if you say you're not sure, at this point in my life, it hasn't always been that way, but as I grow and develop, it's a no for me. Now, baby who was like, no, but then blah, 2 years later, 3 years later, 4 years later, 5 years later, 6 years later, 7 years later, 8 years later, 9 years later, 10 years later, 11 years later, 12 years later, 13 years later, 14 years later, 15 years later, 16 years later, 17 years later, 18 years later, 19 years later, 20 years later, 21 years later, 22 years later, 23 years later, 24 years later, 25 years later, 26 years later, 27 years later, 28 years later, 29 years later, 30 years later, 31 years later, 32 years later, 33 years later, 34 years later, 35 years later, 36 years later, 37 years later, 38 years later, 39 years later, 40 years later, 41 years later, 42 years later, 43 years later, 44 years later, 45 years later, 46 years you're not getting anywhere near it. You said no. This is not no.
Okay,
no.
come on. She's
no.
saying that like when the man's is out though.
No.
I want to it wasn't out. No.
Okay.
I was sitting on my bed, motherfucker. Just no, but you put it right on it, like bro, like nah, like I don't know what
and
to
that
do.
also, where was the consent? You know what I'm saying? And that also speaks to like sexual assault and all of these things. It gets too milly. And I mean, just like you guys made it very clear that you had your rules and your rules were hard set. Like, nah, if you not smashing and that's the situation we have, you're not coming over here. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. It has to be the same thing. And let me make it very, very clear. Men deserve consent just like women do. There is nothing about your bodies that are not inherently wonderful and special that you guys don't deserve being requested of. The same thing that we desire. Consent should always be given, right? Which is also why you have so many men that are sexually assaulted and raped that don't feel they have a place to report it, because we devalue your sexuality as men, and it's not okay. And I find it to be unacceptable having so many nieces and nephews that, you know, you're going to have to think about what's going to happen to them when they start engaging in sexual situations earlier and earlier and earlier. Consent is always enthusiastic consent, like you were touching on, John. 7 states in the United States have enthusiastic consent laws, which mean for every act, you have to constantly reassure, like,
And give
are
a
you
verbal
sure?
yes,
Like,
people.
is this
Verbal
good?
yes.
Like, you
Verbal
want to
yes.
do this? You need a verbal yes.
Yeah,
so if
verbal
you
yes.
are like, hey, I want to change it up and do this, I want to put it here, is that okay?
So how
That's
do
what
you
Okay,
ask?
time out. So my question is, if you say I want to do this and she says yes, is that consent, or do you got to say is
that's
that okay
enthusiastic
first?
consent.
Okay.
So how do you
And
ask?
so, just like I did, like, I mean, and that's also a thing, like literally I've had trainings where I've taught people, how do you go about engaging in consent without ruining the mood? Because that's the assumption.
Yo,
that
that's
if I
tough,
ask,
bro.
it'll ruin
That's
the mood.
tough. Yo,
But
hold
here's
on.
the thing.
Hold on. We had that conversation. So think about it. Yo, you know the story of me and my wife's first kiss, right? Like, I swear to God. I mean, I'm just saying. Her eyes told me yes.
Stop saying things like that.
She's clearly married to me. What are you saying?
She is, but here's the thing. I've talked to so many people that are like, oh, I can't rape my wife and other kinds of things.
I didn't say I
All
couldn't
kinds of
rape her.
stuff.
I didn't say I couldn't rape her. What I am
Listen.
telling you is what the situation had called for at that moment. She wanted like that. Ooh. She melt moment, right?
You don't believe in the
90? I hate you so much.
So you don't believe in the 90-10 rule?
Okay. So let me tell you how it works. Hold on. Corey.
Obviously, he does it, Corey.
I believe in the 90-10, right? I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is at the moment, and you've probably been in moments like this where, you know, y'all have had a great time, but it's like, all right, we're not trying to go here yet, right? And she give you the big talk to you with the eyes, right? You know what I'm talking about?
What if she had a stroke? Like, what if, like, you're not gonna be kissing her? Like, what if she's like calling ambulance? Like, what?
She was not having a stroke though. She wasn't having a stroke though. But what I'm telling you is, she would not say that I assaulted her if you ask her about our first kiss.
Oh my gosh. You know what? And fair enough. But I'll tell you this. So you remember when I told you I started that whole like personal research of like, have you ever been in a sexual situation you didn't want to be in? That all came about in having a conversation with somebody. And they were like, Angie, that's assault, maybe rape. And I was like, no, it's not. And then I was like, oh, shoot. Oh, dang. You know what I mean? So again, as you grow and mature and you learn that certain things that you were always taught are not okay. Like for me in the cartoons, the dude always grabs a girl and kisses her. And so you're like,
Pepe
oh
Le
man,
Pew,
that's lit.
bro. Pepe Le Pew was super rape culture, bro.
Like I told you, not until grad school when somebody actually was like, I want to kiss you. Can I kiss you? And I was like,
did you say yes? Oh, you did?
I said yes. But it opened up a door for me that I was just like, yo.
Oh, I really thought you was about to say that you kissed him because he opened up the door for you.
He sure did. He opened up the door, and it opened up the door for me to give other people the same treatment. And I had to realize I'm a whole grown woman in graduate school with however many encounters of however nature I have had. And I've never really been given that consent. And so it was just normal not to be asked if my body could be acted upon. It was just normal, even though I never even thought, did I like that? Did I not like that? Until this
So-
I
individual
got a
was
question
like,
for you though.
hey,
Go ahead.
If you didn't know what consent was, well, if you didn't know what rape was, how do you expect if the other person to know what it was too? Like, he probably didn't know that he physically assaulted you in that way. He probably didn't know that, and you didn't know it yourself until
Yeah, I mean,
somebody else
information
had
is
to explain
definitely
it to
key.
you. So
Yeah, information is key.
it's very possible.
I think it's more
I will
possible than
say,
not, right? Because
I will say this. I'll be clear. There are situations when there is no ambiguity
Oh,
that the
yeah,
other person is
absolutely.
not going to engage in you,
oh yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Absolutely,
then there are
absolutely, absolutely.
situations, and then there are situations where consent is not sought, and so you have no idea if the other person actually wants to
Okay.
engage with you,
Angie,
right?
real. It's a real quick question. So you
Yes.
used earlier, I'm trying to think of exact word that you used earlier. It just hit my head because we were just talking about it, where you talk about people being engaged and the point of not knowing. So educationally,
Yes.
Corey mentioned when okay, yeah, here it goes. So when we talk about parentals giving the sex conversation, I would be so curious if you were to do research on how many adults truly outside of what school sexual education was, learn how to put on a condom, if your school did that, and not telling you what STDs you're going to catch, had a conversation about everything else in the span that is dealing with sex within itself, right? I think that we use it so far as what it is because, I mean, there's no way to know. I'm trying to say I didn't know because all of my decisions weren't made based on am I doing consent or am I protecting my ego in disappointment? Like that's a whole different. And that
was definitely part of my research. And like I said, the majority, and when I say the large majority, I haven't pulled out my dissertation in quite some time, but the large majority got conversations that were about don'ts. They did not get conversations that were about oral sex, anal sex, consent, different outside of the box sexual activities and behaviors. I asked all of these questions, and a lot of them did not get that. And a lot of them disturbingly did not get the conversation about rape, like what it is and what it looks like and how to say no. And so these conversations aren't being had. And a lot of those same individuals, when I'm comparing data and doing these things, are the same individuals that are engaging in activities that, you know, they may not want to be engaging in or may have hookup remorse, right? And so again, there are so many nuances and so many ways that we are not taught. But if I look back over situations in my life of encounters, there are very few I've ever been comfortable in. Very few.
Dang,
and that's just a norm. And that's a norm for a lot of women, right? As we talk about Women's Awareness Month, that's a norm for so many women that, you know, you do it because you don't know what he's going to do if you don't do it, or you do it because you're not sure, like, he won't hit you or fight you, or, you know, do it anyway. You know what I mean? So
my question is, for women, when do you get to that point where how you're speaking of you do it because happens? Because so for me, I think that that's where the information where I came from, because I don't know if you remember that summer that our school that we went to had that whole Twitter fiasco with the Me Too, everybody getting outed. Like, so our school went through like a whole process of everybody getting outed. But as I read the stories, right, they were chillingly, and what I mean by chillingly similar. I went to kick it with him because I liked him. Yeah. And then he took it to the next level, and I did not know how to say no. So I'm asking, is it based on former situations that have happened to this woman where she is uncomfortable? Or is it based on conversation? When, at what point do you as a woman say, hey, in my mind, because this man is now approaching me, because I tell people all the time, you're not doing anything wrong trying to have sex, right? I want to put that clearly. So if you ask, I said if you ask, I said if you ask to have sex. She was about to get me upset.
I have a question for both of y'all.
But I just said, hold on, I gotta paint the picture. If you ask to have sex, right?
Okay.
And or if you're kissing and heavy petting is moving and leading into the next direction, at what point is she like, hey, whoa, you know what I mean? Because I want to know in my mind, how does a woman go from A to Z to automatically, I need to do this so that I can get out of the situation or I'm not hurt, or what is that? Because I keep hearing that it wasn't necessarily that a guy would be, I'm choking you and I'm taking you down, you're gonna take this, you know what I mean? Versus, hey, you know, I'm trying to get this girl. I'm asking.
I mean, okay, I will say a disclaimer that I will give is Corey's strategy is one of the best. If you are uneducated about consent, let them ask you. Let them be
or let them lead. So
with consent, right? Let them lead. That's the best strategy.
Okay.
Just a disclaimer, right? Because
so then what if you have two people that are uneducated?
I'm just saying, if you're uneducated, that's everybody
sitting there.
No, honestly, if two people are
you know what I'm saying?
Let the woman take the lead first.
Okay,
that's what I'm saying. Like, let the woman take the lead. Let her kiss you first. And again, I'm saying this all within the vein of consent. Let her ask you for things, right? Outside of that, I can't speak for these women, but the fact that it's eerily similar is not odd, because like I said again, it goes back to the fact that women are expected to be quiet. Women are expected to be demure. Women are expected to be palatable, is the best way I can put it. And so when that is the expectation that you grow up with in so many facets, on the playground, in your home, the way that you were talked to, the way that you were expected to talk, the way that you engage with men, you're not being taught. And as a woman who is not taught these things, like, and I mean, John, you know me, like I said, I speak in neon. So when I tell people, yes, I've had situations where I've definitely been sexually assaulted, they're surprised because it's like, oh, but Angie, you're so, you know, this and this and that. But it also comes down to the fact of being in a situation that you did not think was going to go in a direction that you didn't want it to go, whether you were explicit about that or you guys didn't talk about where it would go, and you're expecting or hoping. Let's be real. Most women hope rather than expect that a man is going to seek their permission before acting on their body. And it doesn't often happen. So when you're in that situation, it comes down to, oh shit, this isn't what I wanted. And then it starts to be, let's think about how I'm going to make it out of this situation. And sometimes making it out of the situation becomes, I'm just going to do it. Like, I'm not going to say yes, but I'm not going to fight him because I don't want him to hit me. I'm not going to fight him because I don't want this to happen. Because the moment that you're in a situation that starts going where you didn't want it to go, if that person hasn't asked for your permission, the assumption is they're not going to.
Okay.
And that's a terrifying feeling. It's absolutely terrifying. So it becomes a lot of, I'm just going to make it through it and report it later, or I'm just going to make it through it and never tell anyone, or I'm going to fight him and hopefully I get away, or I'm not going to win. Like, he's 6'4" and 250 pounds and he already didn't ask. So he's going to keep not asking.
I mean,
and that's a regular occurrence. Truly, almost every woman I know has been in that particular situation or situations that go further into rape. Almost every single woman I know.
So,
because
Corey, you had something for her.
Asked.
Yeah, Corey, you had something for her. Go ahead before I jump in.
So, I mean, it's for both of y'all. So, when y'all was speaking on the rape thing and the college or whatever, I never slept with a white woman before. And the reason why is because, like for real, because I was taught, like, yo, don't touch them. They always claim rape. It like you keep seeing these black dudes, they all get claimed raped on. I was like, shit, maybe stay away from the motherfuckers, because I don't never want that shit to happen.
Right?
Hey, yo, I mean, look, I'm gonna say this much, right? I think that I kind of alluded to it in our podcast when we spoke about interracial relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it deals a lot with where our forefathers come from in this country, dealing with people from different races and ethnic backgrounds and things of that sort. And so I 100% agree. Like, my mom has always told me, that white woman will have you under the bus. But then you got to think about it. They're growing up and seeing Emmett Till. They're growing up into a situation where, you're a black ball player and white girl give it to you, daddy find out, and you've been wrongfully accused in jail for 20 odd years. I mean, these are all true cases, right? And so it is yet again, and I'm glad that you said that, because I think that this also speaks to the conversation of where minds go to. I think what Angie was talking about, when a woman is in a situation or a man is in a situation that they did not particularly have or were asked permission to be in. And it's everything that goes through your mind at that time. Every movie you've ever seen with rapists happen, it's every story you've ever heard. Because I was in my mind, like, I'm always asking myself the question is why is fighting not your number one option, right? Like, and it's unfair as me as a man to say that, because that is my number one option. You back me in the corner. I've been taught that, and that's also a different as against how we are put into a position to be socialized. So if our women are always taught to be dainty and quaint and quiet, seen not heard type of deal, I can see now kind of more having the conversation more and more how that puts them in that position to feel like if I shut up and take it, it's going to be better for me. But then it's like, if I shut up and take it, then you didn't do what you had to do to get out of the situation. So it's kind of like you're damned if you do or damned if you don't. And I think that's why it's so important for us as men, especially when it comes to our young women. And like, I've always said, for me, now that I have a daughter, if she ever comes to me with an allegation, right? She is always correct until, if she comes to me and she had to tell me she lied, right? She would have to say, Daddy, I lied about X, Y, and Z. And I think I would be so hurt, because I think I plan to talk to her about the ramifications for both sides of this, right? Honey, if a man lies on you, this can damage you for life. And if you lie on him and it comes out, not only did you ruin him, but you ruined your life. So it's two lives ruined within the conversation. And so I think that that's so important, because when Andy talks about it, like, the conversation of sex never goes beyond the this is the result of sex, right? Versus the complexities that sex and sex culture and consent culture encompass, which are so many different avenues. And I think that is, like, when I listen to y'all both talk about the situations, it just helps me connect the puzzle pieces. And so now I think that that's kind of where that question for me comes from, in a sense, when I look at it.
Now, see, I'm not only speaking for my daughter, I'm speaking for my sons.
Yeah.
The reason why is because I know I'm going to be okay, but it's the fact that when they get put in that situation, when they get put in a situation where they've been lied on, it makes it to where, let's be honest, they do not believe the male first. They always believe the female. Regardless,
it's been situational that a woman is a victim and the male is a predator. I mean, but that's the process of elimination going through social presence, right?
But like you just said, John, you said until proven that she lied, that's when you will feel disappointed. But even though she lied, this young man is already damaged.
Yeah, his life is ruined. His life is ruined. Yeah.
So it's like, how do we prevent these actions when we have young men?
I'm about to drop the segue.
Consent. And John knows
consent is the segue. But hold on, Angie. Remember the conversation we had before the school year started, when I had the conversation with all my young guys going to college to play basketball. So if you're going to play Division I, you're usually going to what's called a PWI. Right? Now, predominantly white institutions, right?
Absolutely.
So the key word is white institutions. So one of the things is this. I mean, I had one of the guys coming in was a number one recruit, like as a training. Now, hey, if you and your girlfriend don't make it, bro, because he's not really that type to be a cheater, but I was like, if they don't make it, right? Because he was teetering, he ain't know yet. Hopefully she don't listen.
Oh my God, you just put his whole thing out here.
Nah, we good. They young, they ain't listening. They ain't listening.
Man.
And so I was like, yo, I tell your homeboys, start downloading consent apps.
Yes.
You need to make sure, especially in today's culture, that you are 100% covered. Now,
so text me saying, "Do you want to have sex tonight?"
Yo,
no,
like it's affidavits,
every single possible act, and you can even write
everything
in
that
acts.
you would do that night, right? It's gonna put it,
Click
it's gonna put
on
it in
it,
perspective, right?
and we both agree it's a literal contract.
So it's like, hey, you know, if you talk about we about to use butt plugs and the nipple clamps, right? She got to say yes, and yes, right? And then she got to electronically sign her name.
Yep, docu sign that.
And hey, bada bing, bada boom, right? But I think
what I love about it is there's updates that if you guys are engaging in the activity and the person has decided like to stop, you can add an addendum to the contract to let it know that consent was revoked for these acts. Like, I love that.
I know that part.
Yeah.
But one thing I do want to say though, if you are a young man or a young female, y'all do just want
it's for both people. It's not just for men. It's
y'all
for women.
Contact us, and we can just have a talk and just guide y'all through the way through any of these issues that you're going through. Most definitely, don't be afraid.
Mentoring is big for both of us. I think
men or women. Trust me, we will help.
It is definitely possible. I mean, I think for us, we're definitely gonna have Angie back, especially and do like a kind of do like maybe do like a whole live show on it. Have people come in and ask questions.
No,
I ain't gonna lie. She got to come to Atlanta.
She ain't coming, man. I've been trying to get her out here.
Yeah, it's highly unlikely that I'm coming back to the continental U.S. anytime soon outside of like California, but we can all meet in there. But I love that really what you guys got at the end of all of this is that all of this rape culture, jail time, all of these things, all of these issues can be solved with the same activities that we give each other in regular community, which is consent. I don't come into your house without knocking on your door. I don't enter your home without asking if I can come in. And if you was raised right, I don't come into your house without asking if I can go in your fridge, asking if I can
your refrigerator without your permission.
You
Corey, so are you telling me when you go to your mama's house, you ask to open the refrigerator?
I don't live there no more, so I sure do.
I asked Corey a question.
Hold on.
I asked Corey a question.
Hold on. All right, so look, I ain't gonna hold you. Mama don't gotta ask me, and I don't gotta ask her. We gotta understand.
You have an understanding, right? And so that's my thing is that there is an understanding, but for such mundane and basic things, we ask for permission because it's respectful. So I will say this. Sex is a uniting process. It is a spiritual unification, whatever you're doing within that process. And if you care about the person, you must care about yourself as well as the person enough to always, male or female, seek consent for every act to make sure that that person is comfortable, because it is always better, whatever you're doing, when both of you feel safe, secure, and free to do whatever it is that you want to do. So always. Quick
question. Do you know some of the application names for
I don't, but I can get them for you. Okay. I can get you, especially the one that had the addendums for the revoking of consent.
So I will go ahead by the time this releases. I know you're hearing this now, but when it releases, I'll go ahead and I'll put the links inside the description for each of the apps that Angie gets me for consent. Yo, I mean,
you can also print out contracts. Like I won't drop your name. You know who you are, but I know somebody who prints out contracts and has them readily they go. And you know what? I applaud that like nobody's business, because he has run into, and I mean, it was very quick, but it was an issue where there was a question of assault and it was cleared up. However, from that point on, he's just like, yo, I'm not getting involved in anything that is not clear, is not legal, and is not stipulated. And so you can always bring up your contracts.
And
a lot of
I
these
think
these high profile people who are in entertainment, they make the ladies or men sign a contract.
Oh yeah, you go
and
to that hotel
followed by what's called an NDA.
Mm-hmm.
Followed by what's called an NDA.
There you go.
I mean,
real
look.
quick.
I mean, at the end of the day of everything that we're talking about here, I mean, I still think that for me, the largest concept comes down to just ask, right?
Yeah,
you just ask and you treat them the same way you want to be treated. I mean, I think if after you establish, whatever worked for you guys, because consent would have been established in the beginning of whatever that is that works for you and the person that you're around, you get to move forward with whatever that is with inside of that relationship or non-relationship that it is. And, but I think that even with that, you have to realize that anybody can change their mind at any given time. And when that mind is changed, honor them with the respect that is given for the same concept of asking for that considered app. Andrew,
I'm letting y'all know, just because y'all say, hey, can I come over tonight, does not mean y'all fucking. Let's just be clear.
And that's why you can't come over tonight. You got to understand that
this is one of my best friends in the world, y'all. And
I am telling you,
if
that's not the smartest thing that you can come up with, bro, you just not smart. You feel me?
Yeah.
I have completely removed any type of conversation that I fucked up because you just can't come over. You can't come kick it with me.
So lovely put, so well put, John.
Most
hey, look, it's the same thing as a contract, just verbal.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna work on it. It'll get better.
Yo, it is. I'm gonna have everybody leave out on whatever they want to give to the consent conversation for the conclusion. We're gonna leave Andrew for last today, so go ahead, Corey.
All right, so look, I do want to say is,
Dr. G.
Oh, my bad. But I do want to say is, y'all are able to contact us. It can be email or hit us on here. We will talk to you. We will guide you and help you through anything. For 1, 2, don't be afraid. It's only a conversation. We can help you get through it. 2, ask. Like bro said, just ask. And just because you say, can I come over, does not mean y'all having sex. So I'm going to pass it off to Miss Dr. G over there.
I go first, she go last.
All
right. So to go ahead with what Corey said, it is just ass. I mean, not only is it just ass, it's allowing, and I'm gonna go as far back as we talked about, parents and godparents and grandparents. Start early with your kids. Let them understand what consent is and grow with them as they grow, male, female, and show what it is. Like, I mean, when I kiss my wife now, I say, baby, come here and let me get a kiss. She can say either yes or no, right? So as my daughter sees that conversation in life, my daddy always asked my mama, right? Or, that's kind of like the conversation that goes on. Like, let it start there and continue to go. Please, parents, god brothers, sisters, mothers, daughters, people, just with young people, do not be afraid to make the sex conversation non-taboo anymore. Because what that ends up doing, it ends up saving heartache, heartbreak, and the differences. And the world is definitely moving to consent apps all over the world. So Tinder, start putting your consent apps up.
Oh my God, that's such a great idea.
Hold up, Tinder. I need 10% if you do that.
Hey, listen, you better
I need 10%. This is here. This is here right now. I'll put it out. Tinder, start that. I said it first. I said it
Ooh, I
first.
like that.
I need money. I need money. All right.
Yeah, you need
And
money,
so-
baby. I like that.
and
That's
so-
a good one.
And so, with all that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and pass it off to you, Doc. Bring us home.
Yes, this was just so awesome. Like, it fills my heart with so much joy to see Black men leading the charge of the conversation about consent and rape culture and all of these things. Because when it comes from you guys, like, I don't know what other people feel about it, and I quite honestly don't care. As the leaders of our communities, it's you guys. You know what I mean? As the leaders of our homes, it's you guys. And so you guys leading the charge on this conversation is so important. And to have these conversations more often, and to leave it on the note of porn is not sex. I'm just gonna burst the bubble. It is not sex. This is not where you go. You said what you had to say already. You can't. No,
That's
it's
debatable.
not sex. It's not
Porn
sex.
is fun.
Listen, porn can be fun, just like cartoons. If you're letting your kid watch a cartoon about how to cross the street and you're showing them Wile E. Coyote, they're going to run out in the street and think that they can get hit and come back to life and bounce back up on the mountaintop. Will they? No.
Okay.
That's what porn is to what sex
You got
actually
us right there. You got it.
Great
You
form
got
of entertainment. Yeah, it's like a cartoon. Great form of entertainment. It is not where you go to learn, okay?
So basically, what you're saying is be
No, I'm saying what
emotionally.
I'm saying. Porn is not sex. It's a cartoon form of what sex is. Have the conversations, guys. Be mentors in your communities for young men and women to have safe conversations, like you guys are saying, about learning about what sex is, normalizing these sexual conversations, right? Discovering their sexuality in safe and healthy ways for whatever is okay for them and their family dynamic, but also normalizing the conversation about assault and rape culture and what that looks like, and sharing those experiences as Black men, as women, right, to the younger generations of what this looks like. And these are not situations that you have to continue to incur, right? That you should always, the only expectation you should have from sex is that it will be asked, right? Consent should always be the only expectation you have of sex. And that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Most
So
definitely.
amazing. So proud of you
You're gonna be on here again with us because
This
So proud of you.
has been another episode of We Still Ain't Got Our Shit Together podcast,
you know the man cave mindset.
and we out.
Just